They say art is only true art if it makes you feel something. Most of the time, it's safe to say a lot of the media we consume is generally safe in terms of how far we take subject matter. You got your typical feel-good Picsart movie that comes out every year, and whatever male-centric action movie that you look at and go, "Oh, he's so me, bro." I won't lie, I am definitely the target audience for a feel-good flick. And that's all well and good, but today I want to shift the topic away from that and bring up a game that I feel is more akin to a psychological horror movie. Today we will be talking about Casualties Unknown, an early access game on Steam. A game which features an overwhelmingly bleak and nihilistic view of a world which shows itself in the mechanics of the game. With its story, its art style, and holy shit is this medical management system crazy and in-depth. Here I thought something like Project Zomboid was crazy. Wait till you see this game. There are many horrific ways you can end up torturing these little furry guys you play as. You can fall off cliffs and crack your skull, your limbs can become infected by wounds to the point of amputation, all of which ultimately leads you to your inevitable death in these caves. This and the narrative of the story actively working against you in the whole grand scheme of things really paints a disturbing and very harsh reality your character faces when they are sent down in these caves. The story being that you play as an experiment, or expie as the community has coined, which in the story is some kind of man-made animal hybrid, which has a lot of canine features and other things from DNA splicing. The setting is a futuristic one, where humans are capable of far-off space travel with teleportation, and humanity finds an exoplanet. Humanity sends out copious amounts of resources to this planet, but one thing went wrong with the calibrations, and so everything ends up in different layers of this planet. Seeing how much of a fuck-up this was, the humans decide to use these new expies to go in these caves to recover the lost supplies. Now, this doesn't bode well for the expies as they are forcefully entered into this, and they have no choice but to venture down in these caves, while avoiding hostile wildlife, traps, and other natural hazards. Which, as a creature with only basic intelligence guided by a player who doesn't know much, will lead to plenty of opportunities to hurt or maim these poor innocent creatures. Which, for me personally, I am not the biggest fan of all this carnage. Now, you might be saying to me, "Oh, you're just weak-minded," or asking, "If you hate it, then why are you making an entire video about it?" Well, here's the thing. I still do like and enjoy some of the ideas of this game, and the characters in it. Now, I don't know if it's a morbid curiosity thing or something else alluring me to this game, but that is where I'm coming from. And I want to talk and discuss some of the content in this game, so let's just dive right in and we can figure this out together. So, Casualties Unknown, a game made by Orsoniks, a Polish developer, with his first demo being published on December 31st, 2024, under the title of Scav Prototype. And from the looks of things, this game was a hit from the get-go, being praised for both the pixel art style, survival gameplay, and including the highly detailed medical system. Some early comments describe the game to be akin to Terraria and even Rain World, with the medical system being compared to something like Project Zomboid. Even in the early versions here, you had folks commenting about the sheer brutality of the game, in difficulty and also in the ways that you can die. Reactions varying from people claiming that they were scarred when playing it when they saw these poor creatures falling or overdosing on drugs, and you had some that were fascinated by these same mechanics. After a couple of updates on itch, the game later changed to Casualties Unknown, and was also posted to Steam as well. On April 20th, 2026, we had the 6.0 Steam release of Casualties Unknown beta. Player count was slow at first, but as the weeks went on, and at the current time of writing, the player count of this game has reached an all-time peak of 4,207 players. This spike in players was in conjunction with the 7.0 beta release. Now that might not be the craziest of numbers, but we gotta remember that this title is a single-player game that is still in beta. In our current trend-chasing world, titles like these usually tend to have a low player count after the release hype dies down. Then again, this is a very regularly updated game, so it has that going for it. Now, I have said the game's popularity has been prevalent since the beginning, but I feel not long after the game's initial release, with the game's first spike in popularity, you can notice how much fan content was being made for this game. From gameplay playthroughs, guides, memes, fan animations, mods, the list goes on. Now, from all of that, I am sure we can safely make the rough assumption that, yes, this game is popular, for better or for worse. Not to say that the game doesn't have its critics. People have noted how dark the gameplay features and narrative, and yet people are still drawn to this title and hold it in high regards. Despite the bleak circumstances, the gameplay is being revered for the exact reasons it's also being criticized, for which paradoxically makes it difficult to say this game is terrible in a sadistic kind of way. The gameplay loop is going down with your expie that you control, to traverse these unforgiving caves, being sent on a one-way trip to certain death, gathering your supplies, managing your wounds and stats to keep yourself alive as long as you can, to get deeper and deeper as you can go before having your life stripped away by making one small mistake. Tumbling down, breaking every single bone in your body just to die alone, bleeding out in a cave as your body tries its best to keep you conscious as you slowly fade to black, flatlining. To some, this is a LARPer's paradise, and people love the unforgiving nature of the game. To me, this is just horrifying, and makes it extremely difficult for me to press that begin new run button. Now, for some of you out there, you might just be saying, well, if you have a weak stomach, then why are you complaining about this game? Or, Lamau, skill issue. Get good and don't die then. My only argument is asking the question of why. Why do I have to struggle in this game if the message of the whole game is that it's all hopeless? If we look at the game with a larger scope, is the excessive amount of gore, violence, and despair justified in furthering the plot? It's still too early to call, but I think I can make a safe bet that the dev does not have an interest in diverting the plot to suit a more general audience. Which I won't knock the dev for making that decision, but at some point it really feels like he's gatekeeping those who want to see the story through but don't have the skill or heart to endlessly throw these little critters at a wall, leading players to the point of desensitization, just to then reach the ending and find out all that struggling was in vain. Moving on to the future of Casualties Unknown. The game being a beta, and the release date being set to somewhere along the 2026 release window, there is a lot that could change, especially if we factor delays, bugs, and even retcons. Orsoniks appears to be an experienced programmer, so I can't comment much on the gameplay side of things. I'm sure for survival game experts, they will have a great game to look forward to. What I want to discuss is the narrative side. Now, my sources, wiki.gg, has some info that the dev has laid out for potential future endings for this game. This is your one and only spoiler warning, so skip to here if you don't want to hear them and such. Alright, we're good? Cool. Alright, so for the record, as I stated, these are just hearsay from the dev, and some of the endings could be retconned, or we could have more endings than these in the final game. Now, the first kind of ending is just dying. From any layer 1 to 12, this is something that we can just see in the game right now. If you die on any of the levels, you are just sent to the game over screen, and that is all. Alright, now the next few occur after you reach the final level in the game, which according to this will have laboratories. And the first of these endings occurs when the player character does not have a firearm equipped, and suggests the player will maybe be captured or something, and kept in a test tube. That's all we know for this one at the current moment. Now, if you do have a firearm equipped in this lab, you get the potential to have 4 different kinds of endings. Now, the first of these being a chipped ending. Yeah, that option you have to pick at the beginning, yeah, that isn't just for show. But if you start a run and get to this point at the lab, and you have a health chip, well, when you start the lab escape sequence, it just ends with your expie getting themselves lobotomized in the lab by removing your chip, which results in the said expie getting brain damage. Alright, now what about if you didn't have a chip? How does it end? Well, you don't need to remove your chip since you didn't have one to begin with. So, you're just able to escape and have a good ending. Now, I say it like that because I am not going to sugarcoat it. There might not be a good ending for all of this. Now, I'll come back to that, but what are the last 2 endings? Well, the first one we don't know too much info on, as it's pretty vague, but according to the wiki, you must play as a certain character named Dune, escape the lab, and you get some kind of special ending. That's all we know, as of writing, I don't believe you can change your character at this time. So this might be something that will get retconned in the full release. Now the last one is a bit more interesting, as it has you gathering special chips and this scarf in the lab. And it doesn't have you using an escape pod like the other 2 endings, as now it just triggers the mercenary ending, where now the ending of the game is now serving as a prelude to Gunsaw, one of the previous games Orsoniks made. Okay, back to what I was saying earlier. With the nihilistic themes of this game, I am uncertain to say this game will have a good ending. Now, I am unsure of what escaping means for the expies, but whether or not it means they are just sent back up to the surface, or an escape pod back to the base ship led by the humans, these expies just can't catch a break, as no matter what happens, it seems they are just meant to suffer, and are doomed to repeat mankind's endless cycle of violence, as it is canon in this game that the events of Casualties Unknown leads to the world of Gunsaw, which the world of Gunsaw is where the expies now inhabit the gray planet they just spent spelunking, just to end up splitting off into separate factions, now pitted against one another for resources, technology, and weapons left by the humans. Humans who don't care for them and just see them as a means to an end. It's a bit of a tragic tale in the end. Boy, and with all that, all I have to say is that I'm a little sick of stories like this. Now, I might just be a hope-pilled individual, but this kind of stuff is depressing, and I don't enjoy it. Now, as I said, this is not the concrete ending for this game, and things are very much subject to change. As everything stands, and I take this game at face value with the knowledge that I have, if I try to view this game from a more positive angle, I just want to claim that I believe Casualties Unknown's story is a cautionary one. Don't make furries real, or corporations will just make them slaves. Alright, I hope you all enjoyed that short little intermission. But now, I want to remind you all, the Underground Collective has a store on Etsy. So, check us out. We got a lot of cool new additions to the shop. We got Spacey's latest CD release, Integration. Music that spans lo-fi, glitchcore, chillwave, jazz, and even has some classical influences. We also have Collar, issue 1 and 2, a post-apocalyptic action drama comic, written by Henry James Williams and illustrated by Reed the Deer. Pick yourself up one of these alongside t-shirts, stickers, badge holders, and more. Hey, it's Editor Coda here to let you know that if you go to the Etsy store, use the link in the description below or use code GORP25 at checkout for 25% off when you buy $25 or more in store. That's capital GORP 25 for 25% off $25 or more. This is a great way to support me with creating new content. As the UC expands, I can feel more financially secure. So, thank you all so much. Now back to the video. Okay, usually when I do make these kinds of videos, I try to do a deep dive on the developer's background. I'm usually able to find something about the developer as a person, like art and such, but with this dev, I am at a complete loss. There's not much that is public for me to look for. At most, we have his itch.io page, a GitHub page, and an abandoned Twitter with an expired Discord link. And we have one YouTube channel, so hey, not much to talk about in terms of the man himself, which is somewhat alright by me because it gives me more time to talk about all the games this dev has created. Let's just have a quick look at some of the previous games made by the developer. First off, we have Madness Melee, a 2D wave-based survival game that's set in the Madness Combat universe. A franchise I'm not unfamiliar with, though only knowing it through the shorts I both saw on YouTube and Newgrounds. It's also well known for being run by the fans, as hundreds of games, fan animations, songs, and even mods have been produced. And this is just another entry. I can't say I'm the biggest consumer of Madness, but I enjoy a bit of it, and I actually enjoyed this little game. It gave off the vibe of the usual Madness Combat Flash game you'd see in the 2000s and 2010s, and I can't say I have too many complaints. It has a simple melee mechanic, linear leveling, and wave progression, and you have a bloody good time doing it, but that's about it. Next up, we got Gunsaw, a game I previously mentioned not too long ago, and I'd like to consider this game a predecessor to Casualties Unknown, as this game is where the expies originated from, and it sorta is similar in how it plays, as it is also a side-scroller, but a lot more gun-focused. Now, Casualties Unknown has guns too, but instead of using it to fend off alien bugs, you use them against other expies. which I also found there are multiple different variations, as you get to choose the type you play in each level. The gameplay is a simple get to A to B level design, all based around kills and time, as you snake your way through buildings, eliminating opposing enemies. The thing that makes it special is the body switching mechanics for respawning, and the copious amounts of firearms you can find in each level. The last thing to note is definitely the blood. In this game, you have lots of it. It's a trend you see in all of Orsoniks games. You shoot other expies with pistols, rifles, shotguns, and some explosives, all which have varying degrees of damage you can inflict. It's a wicked sight to behold, especially when you see some of the details that were put into how these characters react to being hurt. From simple lines of worry to horrific exclamations of intense pain or despair. One effect that really disturbed me at one point was how there was even implementation of what seems like a death rattle. As if you stick around corpses, you can note them choking on their last breaths as they bleed out. The high details of injuries and death you see in Casualties Unknown is definitely carried over from this game. As we carry on the themes of borderline sadism, we find that Orsoniks' next game, Volumetric Shock, brings us an endless runner side-scroller. This is a pretty short, cut and dry sort of game. You got your little guy here that you play as, and at the start, as soon as you move, you are shot and the clock starts ticking, and you gotta book it as you make your way through the procedurally generated platformer level. You race to get these blood bags that will recharge you and keep you going, and the goal is to just make it as far as you can before you run out of blood and just die. It's a really basic platformer with some power-ups sprinkled in here and there that make you go faster or let you break boxes or glass easier. That's pretty much it. A really good hemophiliac simulator. Rounding out this long section, we have the last game Orsoniks made before Casualties Unknown, and that's Gooey. Now, this game I was only able to play the demo of, but I do have to say, this was my favorite game by Orsoniks. Gooey is a first-person action melee game, where you play as, a goo guy. I'll be honest, these guys remind me of Orbmen from The Amazing Digital Circus, but if they were more depressed and desaturated. You go around dispatching all opposing goo fellas to reach the end of the level. You do this by going room to room and grabbing various assortments of level decor to use as improvisational weapons. Bottles, table legs, coat racks, toilet seats, you name it. You can use it all. You control your goo guy to block, smack, and maneuver yourself to duel other goo creatures. I will say, the movement and combat are amazing, and if you start to get the controls down, it is very satisfying to hit combos. Now back to something I want to note. Goo isn't blood, but there are definitely a few parallels to it with how you smack around these buddies in combat, and goo can be seen flying everywhere. From the walls, the weapons, and even your own screen. The violence is there, but it's a lot more cartoony and a bit more tastefully done in my opinion here. If you have played Casualties Unknown, but you haven't played Gooey, I strongly recommend you should probably check Gooey out. It's pretty fun, actually. Just a quick interjection, as I have stated in the previous sections about the story of Casualties Unknown, there is a chance most of Orsoniks' games, aside from Volumetric Shock and, of course, Madness, are all connected in a loosely known canon. Now, with some games still being on hiatus or still in beta, this could all be retconned, but I thought it was interesting enough to note as Casualties Unknown timeline goes as follows. You have Casualties Unknown being the beginning, Gunsaw being the middle and Gooey being the last chronologically. As I guess the goo guys in Gooey are piloted robots controlled by expies or humans? As the planet Gooey takes place on is unfit for humans or expies to inhabit, with the whole no oxygen being a thing in the story. The details are a little fuzzy to me at the moment, but I just thought it was interesting to note. Well, there you have it, a quick run-through of all of those games made by Orsoniks. Whilst the list is short, the reason I wanted to go over all of these titles was to just put everything into frame, as I make the following claim that there is a very clear and obvious trend that is going on here. And that is the fixation on games that focus around the themings of blood, gore, and violence. That one might be convinced is a little idolized by the developer. Now, I am not the first to make this claim, as most people who have reviewed or talked about this game, Casualties Unknown, all find the over-detailed medical system to make one wonder if Casualties Unknown is a sadistic fetish game for the dev and players who seek this type of content out. Now, the dev has not made any comment to any of these allegations. I don't even think that there is any major allegations, as there is no evidence to this claim, and me being the type to not to pry or look into potential drama, I just want to shift into the bigger question of why anyone would want to play games like Casualties Unknown. Now, this game has been crazy to look over. Why do we enjoy games like Casualties Unknown? It's not like it's the first game to ever have themes of extreme gore, violence, and depressing story beats like nihilism. A few I can easily name off are games like Soma, Mortal Kombat, Outlast, Manhunt, and even something like Hatred, the most senseless, violent video game ever created. All of these games share a common thread of controversy regarding their topic matter and their over-the-top depictions of violence. Now, one game that was brought to my attention was one that shared a similar theme of having the feeling of hopelessness. One that I think was done a bit more tasteful, and that is a game called Menagerie 2: Presentable Liberty. A game where you are stuck alone in a prison cell and your only source that connects you to the outside world is letters written to you by a friend and some strangers. Now, this video is already running pretty long, so I'll be brief. In this game, you receive letters while a pandemic created by the same people who shackle you ravages the population on the outside. And as the days go by, the letters tend to get more and more depressing, with you finding out people are selling organs just to save family members by buying antidotes. Charlotte, who is a stranger writing to you from her bakery, gets lonelier and lonelier, until she isn't able to bear it and she ends up committing suicide. Now, you don't ever really see that happen on screen. It's only known by her last letter she sent to you, and what occurs next. You are able to escape the prison from the help of a friend, and once you are out, you see it, Charlotte's bakery. And as you enter, you are only met with a cake, some bloodstains, and a note. And then the game ends, as what now rolls on screen is Charlotte's letter. Now, everything in this game might be rather on the nose, much like Casualties Unknown, and these games might be totally different. I still think Presentable Liberty tells this story a lot better. A story of willingly marching towards your fate, while there is nothing you can do, while leaving much of the suffering that happens up to the player's imagination. I like the slow burn of Presentable Liberty, and the weight of receiving all of these letters gets to you as you slowly find out the fates of your friends, while you are unable to do anything but pass the time. You aren't allowed to see how these events unfold. The closest you get is at the end, and even then it's rather tame compared to Casualties Unknown, while still having the same depressing nihilistic ending that started from human greed. So why do we play games like this? It's just like asking people, why do we watch horror movies? The thrill, the relatability, or the desire to play out one's fantasies? In this case, for Casualties Unknown, it's of course the desire to play a good survival game. But I'm also sure there has been a good handful of people who have come to this game with just morbid curiosity as they hear from one of their friends. Hey, have you heard of this game? You play as a furry who gets its body broken by falling down a cave. Dude, you should play this game. It's so detailed. Your character can become depressed and your little guy gets so sad he blows his brains out with a shotgun. Now, this is probably an exaggeration, unless you actually have friends who sound like this. If so, you should probably rethink the people you keep around you. Okay, but really, I think a lot of you by now understand the feeling of hearing an awful sounding event or story, but having the desire in the back of your head to want to look it up and find out more info, just to be led down a rabbit hole of media that will scar you for the rest of your life. Hell, sometimes it's not you that even looked for it. Sometimes the worst things you will ever see in this life will be something that's flashed on your device by someone who gets their kicks off showing gore. Or that one asshole of a friend who just sent you a real video of someone getting their head caved in by an axe. Now, of course, there is another angle to this, and I did mention it earlier, but I'm going to bring it up again, and that, of course, is the idea that this game might be a sadism fetish game. I am just going to leave it at that. I'm not making any accusations or claiming that this game is that. But I will say, if you do play this game and you do it for that exact reason, I would probably ask you to stop watching this video right now and contact a psychiatrist. Alright, moving on. Life. It's all just pain. Pain being one of the strongest emotions we feel as human, both physically and mentally. Rounding back to what I said in the beginning of the video, art is only true art if it makes you feel something. Well, pain is a feeling, and a common one at that. Throughout the years, we have seen many works of art that center around the themes of pain, both figurative and literal. You have songs, movies, and of course paintings that revolve around pain, as you can see from the examples I have on screen now. There's one form of art that I do want to bring up that uses pain in the most intense way, much akin to the extremeness of Casualties Unknown, that being performance art. Specifically, pieces that revolve around endurance or social experiments. The one performative art piece that comes to mind is Rhythm Zero by Marina Abramovic, a Siberian artist who did a lot of performative art, and in her most well-known series, Rhythm, which challenged the physical limitations of the human body. Her most well-known performance being Rhythm Zero, where she gave people the ability to do whatever they wanted to her while she just stood there for 6 hours in a studio in Naples, 1974. You also had a handful of items that were left on the table varying in usage, with things like paint, plants, newspapers, knives, chains, and most infamously a gun with a singular bullet. In the 6 hours of her standing there, it started very tame with people just touching her like as if she was a statue, but as the third hour came, you had people delousing her with the razor blades, and not long after, those same blades met with her skin. Disturbingly, you even had one member of the audience trying to suck on her blood from her throat with the blade cuts. From what people account from the performance, a lot of contact was made with Marina's body, and in the final hours of the night there was even one daring member of the audience who did end up loading the gun and placed it to Marina's head, and holding his finger against the trigger, while Marina just stood there, not even flinching. Though before any irreversible consequence were to occur, a fight broke out against the man with the gun as he was rushed by an objectant crowd-goer after he aimed the weapon at Marina. After that, the night carried on as if nothing ever happened, with people still using Marina as an object. Marina still talks about her experience, all the pain she endured, the fear she had letting people act on their own without consequence. It was certainly a sight to see. Now, to me, this piece represents how close and intimate art can be, especially at this level with how this played out. You had actual people who were participants in the moment, being able to dictate whatever they pleased to carry out on Marina, being a total exhibition of trust. And it's surprising how people failed. Now, if we compare interactive art like Rhythm Zero to video games like Casualties Unknown, you can say it's a decently fair comparison with how people describe it being a game where you are the one who is in control with someone's life. With the lives of the expies being the parallel with how participants in Marina's experiment had control over her and her life. And it's very interesting to note how some acted very sadistic towards Marina, even when there was no prompt saying that they needed to act any specific way. These individuals chose to act violent towards her. Looking at Casualties Unknown, the game gives the player a lot of control over the expies, especially with the medical vitals system. And your decisions, depending on what kind of person you are, can decide whether or not these little guys suffer or succeed in excruciating detail. This would be a bit more effective of a message if I had a more clearer goal to work towards, if that message was a part of the game's overall intent. Now, the second piece of art is a lot shorter and more to the point, called The Shoot by Chris Burden. It was a short piece this gentleman was infamously known for, as you had Chris standing in a gallery in California, 1971, where he stood still as he had one of his friends shoot him in the arm with a .22 caliber rifle. Supposedly, the reasoning for being shot was Chris to experience what he had only seen visually from media, as at the time the rise of action movies featuring guns and also the news of the horrors of the Vietnam War were rampant at the time. Now, this is something I can relate to actually having meaning in a sense. Chris here has a purpose on why he chose to perform this stunt. If you look back at the violence in Casualties Unknown, it's a lot harder to justify how bleak and depressing it feels when an expie is brutally mauled by your hand to the point where the game will literally take away your control and they will kill themselves by whatever means necessary. Now, I suppose this is the game's way of showing the bleakness of the situation and the loneliness these creatures face in these caves. I can't say I really support the use of suicide or mutilation as a storytelling device unless it is absolutely necessary to drive the plot. In Casualties Unknown, death just serves as the game over screen to say, "Oh, you failed. Want to try again?" Which at this point has just become redundant, as you don't even want to try. These are just two examples of using real pain in art. Now, I could go on for ages talking about art pieces such as this, but I think there are many other videos that go more into detail than I could. So what do these art pieces have in common with a game like Casualties Unknown? It's all shock art. It forces a dialogue in us and makes us reflect on our own morals and asks what are our limits. And I think it has brought into perspective what my own limits are and why I am confident to say I don't like this game. Not because it's bad gameplay wise, but because it just shows brutality I am not comfortable with. And the sensationalization of the game makes me want to ask you out there, how can you like a game as brutal and hopelessly nihilistic as this one? Are you even aware of how harmful it is on your mental health, or are you just too desensitized to these kinds of violent games? All right, well, this has been a bit of a different vibe of video you might not be used to from me. It will probably be a long one. Well, actually, no, I'm at the end of recording this, and yes, I know it's a long one. But then again, I am glad to have my thoughts out on this game, and I hope the conversation this video creates are worth the effort. I feel like I am exposing myself to a lot with having this potentially unpopular opinion. If you can find enjoyment in this game, that's great. Hopefully it's for the right reasons, and not crazy sadistic ones. I hope the dev can take some criticism from the small group of fans who share my views and maybe expand upon a more satisfying story or gameplay features that make the game a little less grisly. I also just want to say a quick thank you to all of you who support and watch these schizophrenic videos of mine, as we just reached 500 subscribers. Well, 512 at the current time of writing this. Hey, I see you. You're about to fucking reach that unsubscribe button. Yeah, good. Don't touch that button, fucker. Oh, and also, I just want to give a quick update. I will be attending a few cons that the Underground Collective will also sell merch at. So far, we have Silver Age Comic Con in Reno, Nevada, July 11th through 12th, and also TTFC in Tulsa, Oklahoma, September 4th through 6th. You can catch me there with Reed and a few of our other compatriots. Alright, thank you again. Let me know what you think in the comments. Am I just a soft-sissy liberal who can't handle blood, or do you think I have a point to all these ramblings? Leave a like if you enjoyed and maybe click that subscribe button. I got more lighthearted things lined up after this that aren't as depressing as this game. Alright, this has been Coda. See ya.